In the meantime, let's talk about all of this and more with our friend, national security analyst and expert, Hal Kempfer. He joins me. Hal, good to see you yet again. You and I were discussing a lot of this throughout the course of the week here. Before we get into it, this is the news of the day here. I want to put this tweet up here from U.S. Central Command and read it because it is finally complete, this temporary pier for humanitarian aid. They say this: today at approximately 7:40 a.m. Gaza time, U.S. Central Command personnel supporting the humanitarian mission to deliver additional humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians in need anchored a temporary pier to the beach in Gaza. As part of this effort, no U.S. troops entered Gaza. Trucks carrying humanitarian assistance are expected to begin moving ashore in the coming days. The United Nations will receive the aid and coordinate its distribution into Gaza. So, Hal, you and I spoke at the outset when the administration said that they were going to be doing this. Construction is now complete here. Are you optimistic that this is going to be a viable entryway for more aid into Gaza?
Andrew, I think it'll work. It's not some sort of strange sort of thing that we're experimenting with. This is something that's been used in numerous exercises to support operations all around the world. It's not a brand new technology, this floating pier concept. Of course, it's been attached to the beach. I'm kind of curious about the choreography of personnel and attaching it, because normally U.S. personnel would be part of certainly attaching it to the shoreline. I'm not quite sure how they did that without U.S. personnel ever setting foot on the ground. That's a rather unusual thing, and I'm sure the commander thought the choreography was probably interesting too. But they did get it attached. It's going to take reportedly at least another 36 hours, maybe more, before it's operational. And then they're going to do a test run, is what I understand, with a smaller movement of supplies going across, about 90 trucks, I think, in a day. And then once it's fully operational, tested, vetted, if you will, then they're going to go with a larger amount. And of course, once it's fully operational, it could, for example, move in 2 million meals a day. And that's a lot when you consider a population of 2.4 million. That's the sort of thing that could stave off widespread famine. So it's a significant capability.
So, Hal, I guess my next question to you is, because each and every readout, it seems, from the White House that we get when President Biden speaks with Netanyahu on the phone, speaks with Egypt on the phone, Qatar on the phone, what have you, included in the statement, in the readout, is the urging that Israel do more to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. After kind of a Herculean task like we just saw here that is now complete, will those calls keep coming or not? I mean, is this enough or not? Will the U.S. continue to press Israel to get more aid into Gaza, even though we just built this temporary pier? And there are several crossings open right now.
Well, in total, this will make a big difference. You know, as part of the total mix of aid transit means, if you will, of gateways to bring aid into Gaza, this is going to make a big difference. I don't imagine for 1 second that the phone calls, the admonitions to Israel to increase the amount of aid flowing in are going to slow down anytime soon. Until you start seeing, 400 or 500 truckloads of gear, of equipment or aid coming in every day, you're probably going to still hear some calls for that. And by the way, I would mention the fact that across Gaza, when you look at their conditions, it's not just bringing it up to the standard that they were before October 7th. They are so far behind the power curve, if you will, in terms of supplies, aid, medical supplies, tentage, not to mention equipment that needs to be brought in for water, sanitation, all sorts of things that you could easily double the amount of trucks prior to October 7th, and they would still be catching up for a while. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of pressure on Israel to increase humanitarian aid. If Israel does that, if they're able to get more supplies in there, get more aid in there, they could really mitigate a lot of the pressure they're getting on the international scene, because that is what everything comes down to, is the conditions on the ground for the Gaza residents, for the Palestinians on the ground. And so they could actually do a lot to relieve some of the political pressure they're feeling just by doing that.
Okay. Hal, I want to put this up too. We have a live picture. on the floor of the House of Representatives and how debate happened today over what's known as the Israel Security Assistance Support Act. I'm not entirely sure when the vote's going to take place on that piece of legislation, though. It would force the Biden administration to unlock aid to Israel, no conditions. How? So now, Majority Leader Schumer in the Senate said they're not going to take it up if it passes the House. President Biden said he'd veto it if it passed. So give us a sense of the picture here. What does the, I guess, inflow or outflow look like of U.S. aid materially and militarily to Israel right now? Is it on pause? You know, has it lessened? What is the picture? Because, you know, I'm kind of grappling with this. Was it as full-throated after October 7th? Has it deteriorated? What does our support look like as far as military aid? They're debating that on the floor right now.
It's a little convoluted, as near as I can make out. It's a little confused. Obviously, some big things. Airdrop munitions like JDAMs and the JDAMs kits that turn in those large bombs, particularly things like 2,000-pound bombs, into precision-guided munitions. Those things were stopped. The kits were stopped. A number of large airdrop munitions, 1,000-pound, 500-pound bombs were stopped as well. There was reports that tank rounds and artillery rounds were also being held back for a while. I don't know if they still are, but that was initially, that was what was being discussed. Certain things like air defense missiles and air defense systems and things that Israel needs to defend itself against what it saw, for example, from the Iran attack where they launched cruise missiles, and drones. That stuff was never stopped. As far as I know, that stuff's flowing in. And then this $1 billion of military equipment, ammunition, whatever that mixture is, that $1 billion that was announced yesterday, that was sold to Israel. That was the term they used. So I don't know if it was part of the $29 billion or this a separate sale. That stuff appears to be going in. And I don't know exactly what the mix is on that, but that could include things that may actually be held back from the other thing.
Yeah, you know, Hal, I mean, that's the thing. You know, we get reports that there's yet another tranche of military aid to the tune of, you know, $1 billion going to Israel. You know, some of that's not even included in what was just appropriated there in Congress. And then we have, you know, members of the House debating aid to Israel with no conditions. You're hearing about, you know, pauses in weapons transfers. So you're right. Over the last 2 weeks, it was somewhat convoluted. I thought you clarified it for us here nicely. Lastly, Hal, I want to get your thoughts because the Israeli defense minister just yesterday, Yoav Gallant, put an ultimatum on Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, saying you need to publicly commit and declare Israel will not have a presence in Gaza on a civilian and military basis after the war is all said and done. We don't know when the war is going to be all said and done here, and we're waiting for a response from Netanyahu. But do you see somewhat of a rupture there, or is Gallant forcing Netanyahu's hand to get on the record about this? That was quite startling, I thought.
Andrew, I see a big fissure. I mean, it's huge. And by the way, Gallant has not been shy about expressing his opinion on this. When he got into it, he actually talked about the fact that he brought this up to several cabinet forums, is what he called them, to have this discussed about the day after, about what would the Palestinian presence look like. Of course, he kind of hints at the Palestinian Authority. The U.S. does more than hint. The U.S. just says it should be the Palestinian Authority. And Netanyahu and his administration simply would not entertain it. The cabinet as a whole would not entertain it. He was very frustrated with this. What it looks like, and what he was basically saying is he thinks it's going to look like a IDF military government, if you will, basically running Gaza afterwards. And as, of course, and he's a member of the Likud party, so he's ostensibly fairly conservative. But so he's not a stark political opponent, if you will, of Netanyahu. But he's made it very clear. He says, no, look, it has to be Palestinian. And that's the same thing the EU says, the same thing the UN says, the same thing all the neighboring Arab countries have said, same thing the U.S. says. He's saying that. In fact, he even cited the U.S. position in his public statement and how this reinforces that.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully we'll get an answer on that, because you're talking about a convoluted question. Answers we have heard throughout the duration of this have been kind of all over the map on what's going to happen to Gaza after the war, who might control it. Will it be Israel? Will it be some kind of third Arab party? You just don't know. And so Gallant wanting to put Netanyahu on the record for it. Hal Kempfer, as always, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Andrew.